Hello Dreamcatchers! Today I will bring you a video around my ADHD, and it will be highlighting the challenges that I face due to my ADHD. As I mentioned in my previous video, I also have autism, and some of the challenges align, some don't necessarily do that. But today I will be highlighting things I specifically think are due to ADHD and maybe strengthened by autism. And the first challenge I have is, of course, a lot of concentration and focusing issues. In secondary school, I never really thought of it as an ADHD problem because I also had a lot of social issues and I just thought it was one and the same thing. It was my autism. But in hindsight, I think it probably has been caused by the ADHD I have, because I still have those issues. But they were more prevalent then because all of my energy went to social interactions and I have a lot more of a quieter life now. So all the concentrations issues happening now are due to autism, and what I noticed then, it were the same issues. They were just a lot more obvious and a lot more present more often. And also caused quite a sense of a lack of a sense of time, which is also strengthened by autism, because both developmental disorders, can cause you to be totally sucked up into something and totally lose your feeling for time when that happens. So when you think you do something for 15 minutes, it might actually be 3 or 4 hours. For example, I just was busy with coloring something and I thought I would be doing that for an hour. But in the meantime, when I was busy with it, I have taken twice as much time as I thought it would take. So lack of a sense of time also extrapolates to having trouble planning stuff, because the time you will think it will take is actually not always the time it will take. A lot of the time, in my case, it takes less time, especially when I'm really excited about doing it and when I find it really interesting. But a lot of the time it also takes more time because, for example, I read extremely slow. And I have had teachers who thought I might be dyslexic, but it never got diagnosed. But also, I already read slow, so I plan a lot of time for when I need to read stuff. I did it when I was studying, but I also still do it when I just read a book for fun. But it might still happen that it takes longer to read something than I actually thought it would take, which sometimes is frustrating because I have timed my reading speed and the speed at which I do other things so many times, and I already plan in extra time, and it still takes more time, which also, it's just even strengthened by the fact that I am also extremely easily distracted. I am sitting here next to my window and I see people walk by who go to the stores and stuff, and that distracts me somehow. Even though I have no clue what these people are doing, I will always see them walking by and I will always want to look in that direction. And I very hardly try to not do that. But I was also that was another point I have trouble with, as well as discipline issues, because I actually know how to plan very well, how to plan on paper very well. Also, I know very well how to plan in enough time for myself, even though it often turns out to be not enough time. But the reason it turns often out to be not enough time for what I actually need is because I have the biggest trouble focusing myself, which leads back to the first problem. Because I have trouble focusing, I have trouble starting on time, which in turn leads to being easily distracted and taking a lot of time to get my stuff done. But yeah, I view this as it might be a little bit negative, but the getting sucked up into things, or in other words, hyperfocus, it can be negative or it can be a positive. If you're hyperfocused, you can forget to eat, which sometimes happens to me because I forget the time and I then tend to ignore what my body tells me because I am busy and I am being busy and so much sucked into my stuff that I don't even notice time goes by. So that gets strengthened by hyperfocus, and ADHD has hyperfocus as a symptom, but autism does something similar. You can also get sucked up into what you're doing. So I think the two things get in a positive feedback loop in a way that if you finally focus, you can hardly stop. So when a lot of people call that flow, if you start and you feel like you're doing it nicely, you're in the flow. But normal people have a little bit less trouble getting out of it, doing their stuff, getting away, catching their train on time, eating food, that kind of stuff. That is where my issues come in. Because even if I make food, I constantly have that urge in the back of my mind to go back to what I was doing. And that has not always such a well planned result. Sometimes my food burns, or I miss the train, or I miss something else like an appointment, I am late or something. This is completely not intentional. It's still really, really annoying. But you can view hyperfocus as a positive thing, because if you can hyperfocus and you have an entire day of time before you, you can hyperfocus for that entire day, nobody is bothering you, and you can get so much stuff done. You can, for example, get the stuff that someone else will always take a week for, you can sometimes get that done within a day. Because you're hyper-focused and you're in such a working mood and it goes so quickly that you can just do that. Which is nice, I guess. I always liked it when that happened and when I could allow myself to stay into the hyperfocus, because when you're actually in it and you allow yourself to stay in it, it's extremely difficult to get out. But the last couple months it has not happened that often that I get into hyperfocus, because even though my life is relatively tranquil, I still have trouble focusing, and I wanted to get to the doctors for that, and to the people who re-diagnosed me, because I have had a re-diagnosis like a year ago or something. But that person that knew me and stuff, she actually got pregnant, and I haven't received an answer yet. But that's a topic for another thing. I have one last thing that I want to tip on, which has both to do with my autism and my ADHD. Because ADHD brains are almost chronically understimulated, but autism brains can be either easily understimulated, which is why you get like underreactive children, you cannot seem to get to do anything, that do not react to anything, or they can be easily overstimulated, like my brain, in which case you get children with tantrums who have no clue, or not a lot of a clue, about how to socially properly interact with other people. And because they cannot express themselves very well, they can get very frustrated. People view it as angry, but it's frustration, because they feel such an intense thing happening in their brain, but they cannot explain what they feel because they don't have the proper vocabulary. They don't know what is actually going on. Sometimes they haven't gotten the intellect, but sometimes they just don't know how to say it, or they are already so much locked into their own brain that they cannot say anything. So I have both. And I discovered that intellectually I need to be challenged if I do something, because I find I get bored very, very easily if I don't get stimulated in a proper way with a proper challenge. But like I said in my previous video, overstimulation is also a thing with sounds, light, and also sometimes tastes and touch. So it's a pretty unstable balance, as you can say, because I also like doing stuff like going to music festivals and that kind of stuff, where a lot of people come together. And even though there is a very relaxed atmosphere hanging around there, I still get overstimulated and get back with migraines or headaches that can last up for a week, and tiredness that needs 3 to 5 days to go away, which is not nice. But when I have the time, I really don't mind, because I have friends there and it's just a lot of fun. But I found ways to cope with that, and that will be the topic for another video. I don't know if that will happen next week or maybe in a couple of weeks. I will see, you will see. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you on the other time.